chance, but let's talk about the strike situation in Hollywood. We haven't covered this yet, I think, for a couple of reasons. One, you just wanted to see how things will play out with strikes, especially in Hollywood. You don't necessarily know how long they're going to last. You know, the Writers Guild strike could have
That's
started
true.
and it could have been over in 3 days, but that's not the case, as we know. The initial Writers Guild strike started on May 2nd, which is now approaching like almost 10 weeks ago. And
Hmm.
because of just the negotiations that have been stalled out and have not been able to reach any sort of place of compromise, the Screen Actors Guild has now joined in on the strike. And I don't think we necessarily need to litigate or relitigate all of the reasons as to why that's happening. I think all of the appropriate information and resources are out there to go find this stuff. But we'll of course talk about these sort of line items and these points of contention as we have this discussion. But this past week, July 13th, an agreement could not be reached between SAG-AFTRA and the AMPTP, which is the American Motion Picture group that represents the studios and the streamers. And basically, the SAG-AFTRA negotiating committee voted unanimously to recommend a strike to the national board of that union. And the national board, they held a vote. They agreed to officially approve the strike. And so now, for the first time in 63 years, we are faced with a double strike in Hollywood where both the Writers Guild and the Acting Guild are striking
Hmm.
for numerous reasons. Really, the heart of these reasons comes down to residual pay
Hmm.
and the usage of artificial intelligence and wages for all of these workers are part of these different unions. The Writers Guild consists of about 11,500 members, but the Screen Actors Guild, which is the biggest guild in all of Hollywood, has nearly 160,000 members. So as of last week, Hollywood has effectively shut down. Shit's not moving anymore. And the AMPTP has decided to back off negotiations for the time being. They are not willing to have conversations at this very point. But due to the fact that SAG-AFTRA is now on strike, that means some very consequential things in terms of what actors can or cannot do. I'll just quickly run through the list of things that members of part of SAG-AFTRA cannot do while they are currently striking. They cannot make tours or personal appearances. They cannot conduct interviews. They cannot attend conventions such as the upcoming San Diego Comic-Con. They can't attend fan expos or festivals which are very much coming up in the fall, like Telluride or the Toronto International Film Festival. They can't attend those. They can't attend for your consideration events. They can't participate in panels or premiere screenings. So when you think about New York and LA being huge
Hmm.
avenues and areas to host panels and screenings, they cannot participate in those. They can't participate in award shows. Award season is slowly but surely approaching this upcoming fall. They can't participate in junkets to promote their own movies. So all those interviews that you would typically see actors participate in, they can't do those. They can't go on podcasts. They can't promote their projects on social media, and they cannot participate in studio showcases. So all of this stuff essentially prohibits actors from having any participation in the promotional rollout of a movie. So, hypothetically, let's just take an example of an upcoming movie, The Equalizer 3, Denzel Washington's next movie to round out that trilogy. If that strike is still going on by that time, he won't be able to promote it pretty much in any capacity. He can't post about it on social. He can't go on the Tonight Show with Jimmy Fallon, which is a show that's also not currently airing because the writers are on strike. He can't go to
Hmm.
any fan expo or festival to present about it. He can't show up at AMC Lincoln Center and participate in the Q&A for the movie. He can't do none of that. So essentially, all of these films that are going to be coming out very shortly here are going to have to rely on some pretty creative tactics in order to roll out and market their movies. And so we'll dive into more areas of this, but man, just to pull back and think about this whole situation, how it started with the Writers Guild and how it's essentially developed into the nuclear option with SAG-AFTRA joining the strike. What do you think about all this, man? What do you think about the state of Hollywood? What do you think about the state of these negotiations, the particular things that they're fighting about, and just the points of contention that exist within this huge transitional period that we're facing now that Hollywood is effectively shut down?
Man, we've known, I think, all of this to be a problem for a while. And I think eventually people get sick and tired of being sick and tired. And here we are seeing the results, man. And it is resulting in actor and writer revolution or strike. You know what I mean? They're trying to figure it out. And the one way you can get these companies to hear you is to mess with their money. And as soon as you start messing with money is when shit changes. And so one, in case it wasn't clear, we clearly on this podcast very much support this strike. We are here for actors, writers, and everybody to get paid fairly
100%.
And it's just so, it sucks that it had to come to this. It really does, man. And it, I knew this had been going on for a while, but it's not until recently that a lot of like actors would like pop up on social media and be like, look at this residual check, y'all. I got one for $4.35. What's his name? Kendrick Sampson. What's his name? The light-skinned guy from Insecure.
Oh yeah.
Who played, bruh, he got a check that said 1 cent on it. It said point. Why are we writing checks for 1 cent? What is this 1 cent? And so those who don't understand residuals are literally the money you make after it comes out on streaming or DVD sales or
syndication,
all of those,
all that stuff.
Yeah, everything after that upfront paycheck. What happens after? These residuals are crazy bad. They're really, really, really bad. And so now it is on these companies, probably a lot of streaming companies who probably are doing a lot of bullshit. Netflix probably. It's probably doing a lot of bullshit to fix it. It's time for people to get paid. It's time for people to stop being greedy. It's time for these companies to step up and actually realize what they're doing to the people. Because without your workers, you're nobody. And so I think this is great. It brings attention to the greed that these people have, and it's time for these people to get what's owed to them, man. It really is actually insane. And so I really can't wait to see, I think, when negotiations comes out of this, because I just don't believe these companies are just going to let themselves run dry by these strikes. I think they're going to come to a conclusion. I think they're going to have to fix shit, because if not, everything is going to explode. We're going to have nothing to watch. We're going to have nothing to review on the podcast. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, all of these things are about to come true in real time. You telling me, like you just said, nobody can do these press runs? Let's imagine a world where this whole Marvel movie is about to come out, literally called The Marvels, and nobody can step on a red carpet. Nobody. Brie Larson, Kevin Feige's not talking on interviews. There's no comicbook.com with Brie Larson and Tiana Paris, and it crazy. I can't imagine that. I can't imagine Disney being like, oh no, we it's okay. We're not gonna have this red carpet. We just gonna keep not paying people. I just cannot see it. And so I am excited about this, and the reason that people are going to get fair compensation at the end of the day, get what they're owed, and get what's due. And not only that, but I think that's going to come with a sense of happiness for these people, right? I think it's going to come with a sense of people. I think a lot of these people already love their jobs, right? We already know actors get paid shit. Unless you're like the top of the top, there's like a top percentage, right? Well, of course, Tom Cruise gets paid the big bucks. Of course, The Rock gets paid the big bucks. But there's a lot of people. The people we just talked about in Joyride, the people we just talked about, they're not making that much money. They're not as much as you think they are.
Definitely.
And so I really can't wait to see them thrive and be happy about what they're doing, because I know a lot of these people are doing it out of love, for real. Actors, for the most part, are just love to do the shit. It's not really about the money a lot of the times. It's what they love to do. And I can't wait for the money to also reflect that. And then things start to change. Moods start to change. I'm sure a lot of these people have been depressed because of these weird ass residual checks and them being broke. It's just a lot going on. And so I'm pretty excited to see the result of this. Of course, it sucks to see, as a first world problem, oh, my TV show stopped. This thing isn't being written. Take the time, go watch some stuff that's already on streaming. Did you know that when you watch The Office on Netflix, your boys probably get paid for that in some form or fashion? Maybe go try to just stream some stuff you haven't watched in a long time. Of course, the residuals suck right now, but go do something. Go do something else. Figure it out. And I think everything will fall in place at some point, hopefully. Because again, you mess with these companies' money and shit's going to start to change.
Yeah, I agree. It does suck. You know, no side of this wants to come to a strike. Like, let's just acknowledge that. Like, nobody wants to not work and get paid for their work, because in effect, if you're going on strike, you're not working or getting paid. So there are so many sacrifices being made. And then, of course, the companies are not making the money off of the products that they're trying to create. But this is necessary, especially when you have revolutionary changes that happen within the industry. The only reason that any advancement has ever happened, specifically in Hollywood, but you could probably apply this to indie industry, is when a strike takes place, when people stand up and say, we are not working until we can actively address what's fairly owed to us. When you go back to the 1960 strike, it was all about the residuals from TV networks because TV had just been invented. So they had to implement a system where actors would fairly be compensated for their appearances in TV. Then another strike happened, some years after that. It was about VHS cassettes and what residuals would come from that, like whether or not people should get paid from the additional revenue that studios were going to get from home video sales. Like, yes, they should get money for that. We're dealing with the 07 strike, which took place 15 years ago. And now here we are again because of streaming, and because streaming has irrevocably altered the entire state of the industry forever. And it's so interesting to me because we continue to have the same conversation when we talk about VFX with Marvel, when we talk about animators with Into the Spider-Verse, and now that we talk about streaming and the golden age of television. For all of these incredible things that we've gotten, for all of these amazing shows that we just talked about, for how dope and incredible it is to just be able to turn on a show like House of the Dragon or Succession or The Last of Us or Game of Thrones or whatever, all of these incredible products that we've gotten. Conversely, the other side of that coin is that people have been suffering and putting up with more terrible and worse working conditions because of these grand, new, excellent inventions like streaming. Creatively, I think we can all sort of sit back and acknowledge, like, wow, streaming has given us so many shows. It's altered the form in which we receive television. It's introduced the binge model. Things narratively feel more consistent and coherent. Dramatically, things feel closer to movies than they ever have before. You get those shorter seasons that feel more akin to a cinematic experience when you get 6 to 8 episodes, right? Like, and that also, as a writer coming into that probably feels more creatively invigorating to have something be as consistent, as coherent as that, as opposed to working on a show that had 22 episodes that would air for 40 weeks out of the year, that you have to think about commercial breaks when you're writing. You have to think about the mid-season points. You have to think about when to cut off for ad breaks, like all of these things that writers shouldn't have to concern themselves with. But the issue with all of that is that the economics of those changes have not reflected where writers should be in this day and age. Like, yes, I'm sure that they all don't want to go back to writing 22 episode seasons. I'm sure that they're better off writing shorter seasons that are creatively more invigorating. But the economics of that, the pay, the residuals, all that stuff has to match the work that they're putting into that. And when you alter the economy of streaming and television as a whole, when we're not getting 22 to 26 episodes every week, but now we're getting these 6 to 8 episode seasons. And you also have to account for the fact that a lot of these shows have huge budgets now. Game of Thrones, The Last of Us, Succession. These dramas take much more time in between seasons than ever before. It used to be where you would watch a show on network television, Seinfeld or Friends, and it would go off in May and be back on in September. And so the layoff was not really a thing. And also the residuals were better back then because there were more episodes, and network TV, you can actively account for viewership and how much a person should get based off of that viewership. Now with streaming, if you work on Wednesday for 8 episodes and there's going to be a 2 or 2.5 year layoff in between seasons, and you get one check per year, and you're not telling us what your success metrics are, Netflix or Prime Video or Apple TV Plus. You're not telling us how many people are watching it, so you can justify giving us a check for $300 per year. What the fuck is that? That's crazy. That hasn't actively accounted for the fact that things have changed. The economy has changed. The way that people watch stuff has changed. So these companies need to even be more transparent. There was that story about the She-Hulk writer, Cody Ziegler, who said that he got paid $396 for the episode that he wrote from She-Hulk Attorney at Law season 1, which was the Daredevil episode, which I would bet, we don't know this for certain, but I would bet more people watch that episode than any other episode in that television season. I'd put money on it if we can get access to that. But because Disney has decided to not actively publicize how many people watch their stuff, they can get away with that $396 check. They can say, like, well, we don't publish metrics, so you're not going to get paid more because more people watched it. We don't tell you that. That's bullshit. That's clearly not fair. You know what I'm saying? So like, all of that stuff has to be taken into account. I saw that story from Alex O'Keefe, who wrote On the Bear, another show we just actively praised and we enjoy week to week when we watch that show. They wouldn't fly him out to LA to be in the writer's room. So he had to write the season one or the episode from season one that he was responsible for out of his apartment in Brooklyn. He talked about how in the winter season he lost heat, so he couldn't work out of his apartment because it was too fucking cold, because it was the pandemic. Things were terrible. He wrote his episode out of a library in Brooklyn. Like, that's what he's dealing with. And he's receiving little pay. He talked about showing up at the awards, at the Emmys or whatever, maybe the Golden Globes, actually. He had to rent a bow tie because he couldn't afford to buy one himself. Like, those are the conditions we're talking about. As you said earlier, most of these people are part of either union are not making a ton of money. There's a 1% in every industry. And the mega rich, your Tom Cruises, your Rocks, your whoever you want to say, Angelina Jolie, like these people are the exception to the rule. 160,000 members is a lot of people. Most of these people are living paycheck to paycheck. And when those seasons shrink, when those episode count shrinks, and then the lead time in between becomes longer, now their opportunity to find employment goes from having one steady job a year to now having to find 3 or 4 jobs a year to sustain their lifestyle. Because let's not forget, they have to live in LA or New York, the most expensive fucking cities in the country. You know, so all of that stuff adds on top of each other. It becomes crazy. I do want to talk about the studio side of this and the streamer side of this, because it seems like we're getting some really tone deaf shit coming out of these studios and these executives. I know you saw Bob Iger and what he had to say about this whole thing. He went on to CNBC, had an interview the morning of him getting a contract extension into 2026. Now, he thought that he was only going to be around for 2 years, coming back, replacing his successor, Bob Chapek. Clearly, Disney has a lot of shit that they got to clean up, and Bob Iger is the guy to do it. So they're going to extend his contract. He goes on, talks about his state of opinion as it relates to this whole thing. And he says this, quote, "This is the worst time in the world to add to that disruption. There's a level of expectation that they have that is just not realistic. And they are adding to the set of challenges that this business is already facing that is, quite frankly, very disruptive," end quote. Now, when I hear that, I ask myself one question. Bob, and I don't know Bob Iger, clearly not, but Bob, are you all not responsible for this disruption? Did you all not pump billions of dollars into streaming services in the race to catch up with Netflix, Prime Video, all these CEOs? Was that not always the goal and the intention, was to disrupt the industry and to lean into streaming? But in addition to doing that, you also made no attempts to adequately pay your writers and your actors for these changes. So how does this make sense? What disruption are you talking about? The disruption that you were very much responsible for, that you were okay with, that you aligned with and said that Disney Plus was the most important priority in the history of the company. Now you have become a part of the problem. So you want to throw and lash back at the writers for striking and the actors for striking because they just want to be fairly compensated. I don't know, man. It's just all that stuff that just like it makes you just like rethink all of this shit and just like how much we enjoy it, right? And like what is it worth? Like is any of this shit worth it for people to like lose their homes and their apartments and not have work? Like all of that stuff is just crazy. But what do you think about just, you know, even the reactions from other people that have been a part of this conversation on either side of it, or just, you know, the whole state of the economics as it relates to this issue? Because this change in philosophy, and also this conversation around AI even, and just like the crazy stuff that they've introduced with that, just the propositions there. I mean, how do you react to those things?
Man, all of this it's just evil, man. It's all just evil at the end of the day. The spirit it's not there. It just feels so malicious, man. I can't say I'm surprised, you know, that Bob Iger would say something like that as a CEO of a company that is, of course, some conspiracy, but a lot of ways proven to be evil in a lot of different ways in something like Disney. And so it's just crazy, man. And it's almost like, one, you know what I'm sick of? I'm sick of old CEOs. I am so sick of old CEOs. I'm sick of old presidents. I'm sick of everybody being old at these big points of power, because they just, not only do they sometimes not get it because their way of thinking is so old, they also just don't care either. And so I can just, again, I feel like a lot of times we just need people who are more susceptible to listen and to understand what's happening. You just spoke about time and how the times of streaming need to reflect what's happening in these residual checks and the way these people are getting paid. And of course, somebody who lived in the old way in which people were getting paid can't register what the fuck is going on. And so it's just It's so annoying. Like, why is everybody so old? Why can't we get younger people up here? I'm not talking about they got to be 25 running Disney. You know what I'm saying? But Bob Iger's 70 something, ain't he? Like,
Yeah.
all these people are old, and I'm sick of it. I'm sure all of us listening to this podcast, you and I, we all got somebody probably in our family who's 70 plus who probably doesn't get some social problem in our society. They probably just don't get it. That doesn't, you know what I'm saying? They just don't understand, nor a lot of times do they choose to understand. So that part is just frustrating in general. It's like, of course, Bob Iger would say some shit like that because he either one truly doesn't get it because he's too old, or he doesn't want to get it. In fact, it almost feels like he doesn't want to because he said, "Oh, we're not completely recovered from COVID, this and that." And I'm like, okay, bro, either you die completely or you pay these niggas correctly. To me, it's a no-brainer. It's a no-brainer. Fuck what COVID has going on. You're Disney. Disney, of course. Come on, bro. What are we talking about?
More than enough money at your disposal. Fuck box office problems like, oh, yeah, these movies are flopping. Indiana Jones and Elemental, they're not making billions and billions of dollars. Like we all of a sudden just don't have billions of dollars still in excess from theme parks and fucking merchandise and TV rights.
Come on.
Get the fuck out of here, man. Y'all have more than enough.
Get the fuck out of here, bro. And then on the AI side of things, oh my God. What are we
Man.
what are we doing? What are we doing? The thing I will say about AI, as a man in the software engineering industry, thing I will say about AI is there is a degree into which AI is only as powerful as the person using it. That is the way we have it set up right now. People listen to this, they know about ChatGPT, they know about all these other things. Fun fact, AI, when it comes to these picture things, pay attention. They can't make fingers or toes. AI can't make fingers or toes.
You're right.
They are not pulling it together completely. Like, we're not going to pretend like AI's just like, we have not gotten a Skynet right, or Skynet yet. Skynet could make some fingers and toes. You know what I'm saying? And in this moment in time, yes, AI is a thing. Yes, AI is a tool. But again, unless there's like some really smart people who understand how to use it, why we're using it in this particular moment, what it's being used for, what's that gonna do? It's not gonna do much for you. Thus, you need to pay somebody correctly and accurately to use it if you're going to use it. Like, and it's just so much surrounding that. That's just like, what people try to make arguments and they try to threaten people with things and they really don't know what they're talking about, but they're trying to use everything as a fear tactic. That is what these companies do. I will come out and say right now, New York Times, we have been under a tech strike for a very long time and been in negotiations. It has become one of the biggest tech strikes of all time at New York Times. I am a part of that. And in that, though, there's a lot of pushback from these people, a lot of pushback from higher ups who feel like they have to say certain things, feel like they have to threaten you with fear of certain things. And so all of this just sounds like the same thing in the movie world. All of it just sounds like a lot of bullshit is being spewed from the companies. A lot of it's all coming together. And now it's just time for action. At the end of the day, it's time for action. AI is not an excuse. Whatever COVID show as fucking hell ain't an excuse, especially coming from no goddamn Disney. Now, if somebody like, I don't know, a smaller production company was like, y'all, we are actually going through it, I would believe them for sure.
Yeah.
The Disney CEO cannot talk about no fucking COVID. Goodbye, Bob Iger. What? Get out of here.
It's so hard. It's so difficult for us right now. We can't do anything. Like, stop.
Get out of here. Go home. Go to sleep, Bob Iger.
Oh my God.
It doesn't make any sense. But yes, at the end of the day, the one thing he said that is correct, and this is paraphrasing, it is very disruptive. You're goddamn right, Bob Iger. And this is all very disruptive. It has to be. And like you said, very shortly, or just a second ago, nobody wants these outcomes. Of course, Disney and Bob Iger doesn't want to strike. Of course, the writers don't want to have to strike. We should all be happy and getting happily paid and going about our merry way. But it's time to make change, and this is the way to do it.
It's the nuclear option. And if they felt like they had to get to this place, that's how you know it's bad. You talk about that fear tactic. One of the things that leaked, I guess, from Deadline, when this was all going down, a studio executive, an insider, came to Deadline and said, quote, the end game is to allow things to drag on until union members start losing their apartments and losing their houses.
That's nuts.
Wow. Really? That's the case? We're just gonna fucking allow
Evil.
this to go on as long as it needs to so that people can fucking suffer because the companies and the corporations feel that they have so much leverage that they can threaten and induce fear into people to not want to reach that level. Because my next point of this, and the last point before we wrap up today, is how long does this go on? Because we really don't know. I mean, it's already gone on for 9-10 weeks now. The last strike back in 2007 lasted 100 days. The end of that really got accelerated because the Oscars were on the horizon. And I think everybody was like, well, we got to fucking negotiate now. So let's like get this done and figure it out before the Oscars. The Oscars aren't until March. You know, that's a long way away. And I'm not saying that it's going to go that long, but it doesn't feel like that there's a key moment that's going to necessarily get people and get their asses in the seats to get back to this negotiating table. SAG-AFTRA, the WGA, they have made it very clear that they are ready to negotiate and revisit conversations immediately, as soon as they're ready to. However, the AMPTP has decided to back off after SAG-AFTRA decided to join the strike. They said, you know, we're not willing to revisit this, which is a crazy thought to me because nothing is ever going to get resolved until you talk about it. So how do you expect anything to find a resolution if you're actively not talking about it? So that's kind of crazy to me, and just, you know, is indicative of their mindset that, you know, oh, we have enough content to last us for, I don't know, 16 months. Fuck them. We'll have the conversations when we're ready to. They're going to suffer more than us, which is crazy, and that's not true. We know that that's not true because, as I noted earlier, we have a fall movie season coming up. We have an award movie season coming up. The Marvels, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, Gran Turismo, The Equalizer, Dune Part 2. These movies are not going to have their stars promoting them. How the fuck does that work? Are we going to keep having movie premieres at Disneyland with characters dressing up, acting like we're walking the fucking red carpet? That's silly. That's wild to me. But these companies have to know that your stars are not going to be able to promote your shit. Now, luckily for them, recent examples like Barbie and Oppenheimer, they were able to get all their shit done, knowing that this deadline was coming up. They pumped out everything quickly. But even that wasn't enough because the Oppenheimer cast was walking the red carpet overseas and left the shit in the middle of it because the strike happened, you know? So there's only so much that can be done, right? But I mean, how long do you think this goes? And what are your thoughts about how it affects the stuff that's on the horizon, the stuff that we talk about on this very show, the stuff that we just constantly ingest on a day-to-day basis? I mean, how long does it take before we actively see the effects? I mean, we've already seen effects so far. Late night shows aren't airing, you know, they're airing reruns and putting out playlists on YouTube's. Certain stuff, again, as we said, won't be able to be actively promoted by the actors associated with this stuff. But what's your outlook on just, you know, possibly how long this might go for, and just, you know, what that looks like for just the grand scheme of things, of the stuff that we'll receive on a day-to-day basis?
It's so hard to tell, man. But the way in which the machine quite literally does not work without its actors, I know it can last a long time, but I am kind of optimistic that it won't last too long, because I think they do understand, but there is a level of, I think, productivity that Hollywood is used to having, especially in the fall season. Like, I think this timing is insane. If it happens at the beginning of the year, I'm like, but the timing is insane. You and I both know we are at our busiest as moviegoers in the fall. I mean, Killers of the Flower Moon, you've already named some other things. There's no way. The two things that made me the most upset, of course, Killers of the Flower Moon and Doom Part. I almost want to like throw a brick through a window myself for Doom Part 2. There's no way they're messing with my movie right now. But I think they're gonna have to figure it out. It's something in me that's like, the way when it comes to a full stop like this isn't like, oh, only 100 people stop working. You know what I'm saying? Like, is
like productions are shut
history.
Down. Like Deadpool 3 just shut down. Blade's not in active production. Beetlejuice 2. Like, there are active movies not being made. Mission Impossible Dead Reckoning Part 2 had to shut down. Like, they still have to finish that movie. You know what I'm saying? Yep. So like, this is full scale.
Yeah, and it just feels like without that, knowing that, feeling that, it's already history. You know what I'm saying? History is already being made, and I think I think some stuff is gonna start to come around. I really do. Again, you start messing with that money, bro, and it's so in my mind. What is it? It's July right now. To be honest, I'm probably giving it to October
Mm,
for me. I
mm-hmm,
think I'm
mm-hmm,
giving it to October. I think there's going to be some hard headedness the past month or the next month. Again, this is going off low key the experience I have in my company.
mm-hmm.
I think it's going to be some hard headedness the next month. The Bob Iger saying dumb shit, COVID, whatever, and then the end of September is going to hit. And they're going to be like, oh, uh,
It's a wasteland in front of us. We don't got shit. What are we gonna
not
do?
only not only is money not coming in, but there's nobody there to count the money. Like, you know what I'm saying? They're like, where is it going? There's nobody there to pick up the check.
Mm-hmm.
There's nobody there to write the check. Everybody is gone. Bob Iger's in his office by himself. What do you do? There's nothing this strike is putting the companies in a wasteland. I don't know, just a board of execs and a couple other people and parties involved. Everybody else is on strike. And I like that because that's the definition of bleeding them dry. And I really think it's going to work. I do. I think they're not going to let this go by. So we'll see what happens, man.
Yeah, I mean, again, the actors joining in it's really like a
That's
last
huge.
effort. That's like a last ditch effort to make them wake up and realize like this shit is for real. And because the actors joined in, I do anticipate that that's going to accelerate the process. And I was initially thinking fall as well, like October. I think with the actors now in it, I'm thinking September, but maybe even bleed
Even
into
faster.
October.
Mm-hmm.
Because I feel like the summer, they're just gonna let this, sort of play out for the rest of the summer. The stuff that's coming out this summer, it's pretty much already taken care of and accounted for in terms of press and rollout and interviews and all of that stuff. But once September hits, once we get back from Labor Day and we're really into the fall of it, I think they're gonna have to get fucking serious about it because all of those network TV shows that would come on in the fall, they're not gonna come on. Like Abbott Elementary won't be on the air in October because they haven't been producing shit because they can't because of this strike. You know what I'm saying? So like that's
Mm-hmm.
just one example of the many examples that we've given. There's so many things that are going to be pushed back. There's no way that Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse is going to come out next year now, as we speculated about, because voice actors can't act. They can't be a part of that movie. Other films that are supposed to come out next year, Dead Reckoning Part 2, might not come out next year because of this. And that money,
Mm-hmm.
those placements, that release calendar, when stuff comes out, is really important. That's super strategic. Quarters are a thing. They need certain numbers for certain quarters. That's why you see movies come out at all times of the year. That's why certain TV shows hit when they do. HBO is super strategic about their rollout calendar. They need big shows in Q1, Q2, Q3, and Q4. That's why when Succession was over, what came out right after that? It was another, was it The Idol or something came out right after Succession. They always have things geared up and ready to go, but we're starting to see that won't be the case for as long as this goes. So I hope that they do reach a resolution that is fair, especially for the actors and the writers, and definitely takes into account all these different things because we got to get better about this. We need this revolutionary stuff to take place in order for progression to happen. And it's more than time. It's been 15 years since streaming was pretty much invented. They need to make sure that things are
Mm-hmm.
accurately, adequately, and fairly updated to reflect those times so that people can sustain their lifestyles, because that's what it's about at the end of the day.